the Weekly Show with David J. Maloney. This week, David chats with Oscar-nominated actor Eric Roberts. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. Our featured guest tonight has a face you're bound to recognize, and not just for his Golden Globe and Oscar-nominated performances, but also for the incredible volume of work he's produced across the past 4.5 decades, being in many of your favorite films and TV shows. With us tonight is none other than actor Eric Roberts. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. On tonight's show, we've got a really special guest. We've been seeing his face on the silver screen and on our TVs since, well, the 70s. His debut role in King of the Gypsies earned him his first Golden Globe nomination, and he simply moved from strength to strength with stellar performances in films like The Pope of Greenwich Village, Star 80, and Runaway Train, for which he received an Oscar nomination. Here with us tonight to chat about it all is none other than Eric Roberts. Eric, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. How we doing?
We are doing dandy. So your parents were obviously very artistic people in their own right, being actors and playwrights themselves. How did your parents go about introducing you guys to the world of acting, theater, and writing?
Well, I had a terrible stutter as a little boy. So, but we found out when I memorized things, I could talk without stuttering. So it became an exercise at first, and it became fun. And then it became what I did. And so it just had its steps into but it all started out as a bad stutter that I learned how not to stutter by memorizing dialogue.
Did your parents gravitate towards theater or kind of mold you in that direction per se? Or was that something you just found on your own? Or did it have to do more with the whole stutter thing that you were overcoming?
It all began with the stutter thing, but I was good at it. So my mom and dad both said, you should do it if you like it. And they're both very supportive about it.
So did you have or do you have any idea how your dad came to be the acting coach for Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, Yolanda King? I mean, that came up in my research. I found that bit of family biography a little fascinating. I didn't know if you knew much about it, but if you did, I was kind of curious.
Sure, I did. I grew up with the King kids. Yoki, Martyr, Dexter, and Bunny came in our school in 1965 because Coretta had read they were integrated and that we were looking for students. So she brought her whole family to us, and Yoki and I made friends. And then Yoki and I also grew up to go to the same high school together. And we're both in student council together. So we both were. Our whole lives were so intermixed, and we were pals, and to the point where after I became famous, she contacted me to work with me, and so we were about to start that when she passed away.
Mm. Do you remember a specific film or play making a particular impact on you when you first saw it? Like, is there one that sticks out in your mind as the one that gave you either A, the most joy, or B, the most feeling, or hit you the hardest?
Well, there are like many levels of what you're talking about. As a young adult, the play I saw somebody else do that had the most impact on me was John Gielgud and Ralph Richardson in a play called No Man's Land, which is on Broadway. I only saw the second half, the second act of it about 12 times because I would sneak in to watch it. I never saw Act One, but that play showed me what it's like to have the weight of dialogue and character on your shoulders. You're half the show, and what you can do with it, or how you can fail with it. And they were both so incredible as actors, as thespians, as men, that I got many lessons every night watching them in Act Two.
Can you walk us through getting your incredible breakout role in King of the Gypsies? I mean, what's the story there? How did that come about?
Well, let me see. It's January of 1978. Just come back from Georgia, where I was down there for a funeral. And I've just come back, and my manager hands me a script. He goes, here's a script called King of the Gypsies, based on the book by Peter Maas of the same name. Do you know who Peter Moss is? And I said, yeah, he wrote Serpico. Sure, we all know who Peter Moss is. He says, well, here's King of the Gypsies. It's the same kind of, biographical thing, blah, blah, blah. I read it. I fall in love with it. Wow, this is cool. Yeah, well, here's the script by Frank Pearson. And I read the script by Frank Pearson. Okay, Frank is also going to be the director. Do you know who Frank is? No, I don't. He tells me. Wow, I'm impressed. That's cool. Now, 6 Degrees of Separation, which I found out 30 years later, is my wife had just done a movie with Frank Pearson, and my wife had also been in a movie called Animal House while she was pregnant with her oldest child, which the horse story is a story that I told Doug Kenny that he put in the movie about the death of the horse and sawing up the horse. That was a story I gave Doug Kenny. So 6 Degrees of Separation all over the place. And I told Doug Kenny because Doug Kenny was dating a woman I was doing a play with at Joe Papp's Public Theater. So it's all kinds of interwoven stuff with lots of people, lots of cool stuff. So that's where I'm at that time. And my manager hands me that script and that book by Peter Moss. I read them both. I go in and I audition 3 times for Frank Pearson, and I get a screen test. Now, the day of the screen test was the biggest snowstorm to date in New York City that ever happened. It shut down the city. All the trains shut down, all the buses shut down. There was snow up to my knees everywhere. I lived on the Upper West Side, which at the time was very cheap. It was not as cheesy as it became yet. And I lived on West 73rd Street. So I walked down to the Gulf and Western building to have my screen test. Of course, everything was late that day because of the snow. So I curled up in the corner and went to sleep and slept for about 3 hours. They wake me up. Mr. Roberts, your screen test. We're going to put some makeup on you and shoot your screen test. Great. I did it and I got the part. And that was kind of how it worked. Frank showed the screen test to Dino De Laurentiis and said, this is who I want. And Dino said, of course, that's who you want. He's great. And they gave me the part.
What could have possibly prepared you so young to give the kind of performance that you gave in that film? I mean, it seems like right out of the gate, like, boom, you were in the awards conversation.
I'd done lots of plays. I had lots of experience, and I was very lucky. And I was at a turning point in my life. I just lost my father, and I felt very, very singular, how one does after death of a family member. And I just felt brave, and I just attacked it. And I got somebody watching who mattered, Frank Pearson, and he made me a movie star.
While you were shooting, did you feel like you were giving an award-worthy performance? I mean, did you feel like you were shooting something special, or was it so new to you that you didn't even realize how good you actually were?
I felt I was kicking ass.
So what do you remember about your first day of shooting? I mean, here it is, your debut feature, standing in the same room with such an incredible cast. Did anybody there put you at ease, or did you just come in like, were you cocky, and did you just come in and just go, I'm going to go grab this thing and run with it? What was the mood?
My first day of shooting, I lived on the Upper West Side when it was kind of slummy. This is 1978. And it's January. It's close to Valentine's Day, my first day of shooting. Yeah, and I get up and I'm very nervous. I only slept a few hours, and I get up and I realize I'm going to go make my movie. Oh my God, I'm a wreck. Oh Jesus. Okay, I know my lines, I know my stuff. I'm ready to go. I go downstairs. There's a car. I say to the guy, you know what? I'm really nervous. I have trouble breathing. So how about this? I get on my bike. I follow you. We're going to the Queen's studio, right? He goes, yeah. Okay, I'll follow you. He goes, I don't think that's very copacetic. I said, well, I need it, man. I'm nervous. He goes, okay, kid. He drives. I follow him. We get there. He pulls over. Here's the studio. Okay, I pull up on the sidewalk. Boom. There's a guy and this other guy, this young movie star looking guy, an older fat guy, and they're standing there And I pull it in front of them. Hi, how you doing? And it's my producer and his son. It's Dino and Federico. And Dino says, what the motorcycle, blah, 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 blah. This big fit. And I'm told I can never ride the bike again while I'm making a movie. And then I said, so my first day on the set, I got in trouble. And they told me I was never ride a bike again, especially while I'm making a movie, and I'm an idiot and blah, blah, blah. And okay, now we'll go to work. And so an hour and a half was spent with that when I showed up. So, but I got that out of the way. And everybody was very good to me, especially Shelley Winters. Shelley Winters treated me like a real thespian, like a real actor. And I was there for a real reason. And she treated me with utmost respect. And it was very, very endearing for a young guy at 21 years old to be getting all that from a two-time Academy Award winner. So that was cool. And also Susan was also very sweet to me. And Brooke, taught me how to have fun on the set. And and Sterling Hayden, when I met him, he was smoking hash in his trailer. So that's a dichotomy of where I was at with my first movie.
When did you first find out that you'd been nominated for a Golden Globe, and where were you?
Well, that Golden Globe, they stopped that category after that year. That was a category they always had called Best Newcomer. And I was in it that year, and I lost to Brad Davis, who won for Midnight Express. And but I was at a really cool table with who is the guy from Man Called Heart? Richard Harris and Turkel and just a bunch of cool people.
How did your role for Star 80 come about? And is it true that you portrayed the character so well that you were essentially typecast kind of in the dating scene where women presumed you were as bad a person as you played in the movie? Is that a true story?
Well, let me give you an example, just to not give an opinion about it, but just an example of the situation without opinion. Is that I would walk down the street after Star 80 came out, and a woman would see me a block away, walking towards me, stop and cross the street. I mean, it got bad, dude. They were scared of me, and you don't have time to explain. I'm only an actor. It was bad for a while. People thought I was that guy, and that poor guy had some issues.
So you followed up with the Pope of Greenwich Village, another heavy-hitting acting job. I mean, geez, the scene between you and Mickey Rourke, where you explain they took your thumb, the Charlie, they took my thumb scene is truly incredible acting from both of you. What do you remember about filming that scene with Mickey? I mean, it's funny. I was talking with, I mentioned to my father that I was going to be interviewing you today, and immediately he went into Charlie, they took my thumb.
No, I love hearing that. Well, here's the deal about that day is the night before that day, I knew I had that day coming. And my oldest sister, Lisa, and I had worked very hard on that scene in my private time together. She ran it with me a lot because it's the kind of scene that he's not of this earth, and that he's on drugs, he's on painkillers, all this stuff, but he's also reliving the experience. So he's going through it to some degree, but he's all effed up. And so it was a very tricky scene that you couldn't play. The only way to make it funny was to really jump at the tragedy of the scene. Like Mickey has one line in my monologue, and like Mickey is an actor who does not learn lines. He's totally improvisational, and if you can't keep up, you're left in the dust. It's as simple as that. And he's a real actor, so you got to keep up. Okay, but I told Mickey, got one line tomorrow. I need the line because it's a transition change in my speech, and my speech is 3 pages long. I got to have your line when it comes, not just casually when you feel like it. I need the line tomorrow. Okay,
because it'll throw you off otherwise, because you got everything else prepped around that.
Right. He goes, no sweat, Ace. You got it. I said, thank you, Mickey. I love you. See you tomorrow. I go, okay. I get back to work.
I think I know where this is going.
And we're having a line run through. He does not know his one line. I said, Mickey, learn your effing line. I'll be in my trailer when you learn it. It's the only time I ever pulled an actor routine with Mickey. Mickey, learn your line. I'll be back when you do, that kind of thing. And he learned his line, and we knocked it out, and we did it in 2 takes, and it was one of the 3 or 4 hardest monologues I've ever had in my 44-year film career, and Mickey and I, we were so bonded during that movie anyway that everything we went through was an experience for both of us, and so we got through it together. And I was very proud of it. And here's what happened too: is I cry so much in that, so I'm letting her real crying, ba 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 ba, and so for take 2 of the thing for the inserts, I rubbed my eyes. Anyway, I scratched my cornea. So, but I finished shooting the scene. We had cornea medicine put in my eye. It hurts so bad to scratch your cornea. Oh man, is it painful? It's like a broken nose. It's really bad. So they give me a cornea medicine to kill the pain, and we shoot the scene later on in the afternoon that day when he gives me soup, and I have my favorite improv line where I say, "White bread. No one of these wasps got no color," and yeah. And that was that situation. It was a great day on the set, and I had my best acting buddy with me, and we killed it.
So that whole scene, because I was going to ask you, that whole scene was scripted. None of that was improv by you, or did you take some liberties?
Oh no, that monologue was all Vinnie Patrick. That was all Vinnie Patrick's words, man. The only thing I added was white bread. No one of these wasps got no color. The rest of that whole thing was him, dude. And every syllable. And I respected the writer.
Wow. What did you use to inform your performance in that picture? I mean, because you had to draw from so many different places. Was there some place you drew from for that?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was me in another context, in that, he was a guy who wanted to be a tough guy. He wanted to be a mobster. He wanted to be this and that, all the things he was not. And I, as a kid, was very short up until I was 19. I grew 6 inches in 1 year at 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
So in high school, when I get into high school, I was 4'10" in the 8th grade. When I was in driving, I was 5 feet tall. I was a little person. And I thought I was going to always be a little person because I had 2 grandmothers who were both under 5 feet tall. So I thought, well, I got the short gene. I'm going to be a punk, And and I was in the South, during the civil rights era. So everybody was a little testy. And I was a little short. And I was an actor kid. What was to like about me? So I got picked on a lot. And so I learned how to fight. And I became known as watch that little guy. He's a handful. And so I understood being left out. I understood not being who you wanted to be. I understood being needy in that aspect of yourself, having no sense of self in that aspect that had pride to it. And Paulie Gibboni was a skinny, frizzy-haired kid who wanted to be a tough guy and was not, and but was going to be no matter what. He's going to be a tough guy, and he failed miserably every time he attempted it, but he kept trying, And I just loved him very much. And in fact, in January of that year, when I got that script and that book, I was told by the producers, pick a part, Paulie or Charlie. And I picked Paulie. And they said, we wanted you to pick Charlie. Why'd you pick Paulie? And I said, it's a better part. And they said, but Paulie's a leading man. He's handsome. He's cool, blah, blah, blah. He wears suits. And I said, yeah, that's not my guy. I said, okay, so we're going to go after Mickey Rourke. I said, great, and they did, and they got him, and we made a great movie together.
Absolutely. So the next film, and speaking of learning how to fight, the next film that, I mean, really, 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 truly proved your acting skills to all of us was your incredible performance in Runaway Train, in which you received an Oscar nomination. How did that job come about?
Well, that was just an offer. They sent me that script. The Golden Globes sent me that script, and they said, we'd like you to play this part. Now, when I read the script, he was a tough, kind of a mule kind of a guy. He was a tough guy. Yeah, I'm in for statutory rape because I like young women. Not a very likable or very appealing or very fun part to play. So I said, I don't want to play this part unless I can take him in a whole other genre, a whole other personality, a whole other dynamic. I can make him a punk kid, but he's going to talk like this. He's going to have a deep voice, and I want to make him a country boy, which, you know, I didn't know she was 16. I thought she was like, so it's okay with the audience that he made a mistake and that who he slept with. That's what I wanted to give this guy, because it was statutory rape. So that's so distasteful. You know, and I because it's such a crappy crime, I did not want to make him a crappy person necessarily. So I changed how he talked. I made him talk higher. He's country, uneducated, and I asked the director, who was Russian, can I do all this? And he said, of course you can. We hired you because you're a great talent. Do what you want. But I realized he didn't have an ear for a Southern accent. He didn't know what I was doing, and I realized that about a week into rehearsals, because we had 2 weeks of rehearsal, and I realized, wow, I think maybe he just doesn't know. Oh God! And I asked John Voight, how do you like what I'm doing? I like what you're doing. And I was on, I don't know about John either, because John was wearing a whole body suit, because John only weighed 160 pounds and he's over 6 feet tall. So he was really super skinny, but he had his body suit. So he looked all muscular and big. He was not muscular and big. He was a skinny cat, but he had his big body suit on. Anyway, I was very nervous about that part at first, but John was so good in the part. And I love working with John so much. And I also found out years later that John and I have opposite politics, which I had no idea of knowing at the time, because we just dealt with each other as actors in the characters. And so I knew nothing about John except as that character. And he was such a badass, and we had so much fun together. And it was cold and it was dangerous and it was hard shooting on a real train. It's so much work, and you know, every take is 8 minutes long, for Christ's sake, and you're on a train and you're shooting on film. You know, we didn't have the luxury of digital. You know, we're like shooting film. It was hard, man. It's a hard shoot, but John Voight, you know, made it worthwhile.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. A special thanks to actor Eric Roberts for joining us. Eric will be back with us again next week, so please tune back in. Stay safe, everyone.